Not one. And what they said was, it's very obvious to us, where Adam came from, the only place he couldn't have come from was Africa. Now bear in mind, Africans have no Neanderthal genes, they have no Denisovan genes, and they're supposed to be first. That doesn't make sense. It sounds like they were separate from the rest of us. All Europeans have Neanderthal genes. Africans have none. But they're supposed to be our ancestors. Why don't they have these genes? It doesn't make logical sense to even conclude the Africans in a discussion of where we came from. And of course it's worth bearing in mind, ladies and gentlemen, they've now found, I don't know if we've got this up yet, are we doing the oldest hominids? Probably not. Do it very quickly. The oldest hominid was found in Russia. It's 9.8 million years. Where are the monkeys and apes there? The second oldest hominid is found in Bulgaria, 7.4 million years. Then one in Greece. Do you know when you get African? 6 million years. So where did the hominids come from? They didn't come from Africa. The whole of this story is wrong. And the science comes out day after day to prove it. Now, notice, thank you Evan, here's the Africans. We have 1, 2, possibly 3 races. And they're all African. There's the Pygmies and 2 others here. That's their group. This mob here, that's the rest of us. And notice 40,000 years, you've got that split there, and then you've got the person that they all come from. That's African, that's European, that's Asian. There's only one race left. And you notice they left it open because they didn't know what to put in there, but we know what to put in there. That's the blackfella circle. That's the beginning group. So ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what the genes tell us, and that's why we've got to do this talk first before we get to the other stuff. The genes tell us this. Whether you look at the Y chromosome or whether you look at the mitochondrial DNA, you can go to anywhere you want, but don't go to Africa. That's not where it started. It started somewhere else. We believe it's Australia. Some people say Antarctica, then Australia. I'm okay with that. A lot of elders are saying that at the moment too, aren't they? Okay, next one, mate. Oh, right, the last one. This was a 6-year study done by 6 universities, including a rather dodgy institution called Harvard. So yeah, people can make fun of some of these studies, but honestly guys, these come from top level. We only put top level stuff up. What did that tell us? David Reich, they decided to look at 2 people in the Amazon, 2 tribes, the Tupu and the Gi speakers, and the reason they chose them, good logic, good science, is because they only married with each other. They refused to keep with the other tribes. So they figured, we've got a genetic base here that's quite pure. It's been kept within each other for that period of time. Therefore, what we get out of this is going to be strong. And I read the report, and David Reich, who was the head reporter, said, we tried to make the result go away, and every time we went back, it got stronger. The closest relatives to this mob down here are here, here, and here. The Andaman Islands, Papua New Guinea, and Australia. And they said, and David Reich was a believer in just one race coming to America. They were great believer in that. He taught that in all of his lectures and tutorials. He said, I got it wrong. I've got to go back and fix it all up. There were 2 races that come to Australia, and the earlier race come from here, and they went across. Do you realise in Chile, every child in Chile is told that their ancestors came from Australia? Do you realise in Australia, no one's told anything about Australian original people, not in one school. Believe me, I tried it. I ended up fighting with the Board of Studies, and they don't listen. No, we can't put that up. Okay, so the next one please, mate, I think we're out of it. Ah, we are. Go back one, you shouldn't have gone that quickly. Right, ladies and gentlemen. That's the advantage of having a son that's sitting here, he's haven't got the main microphone. He can't fight back. That's all right, we'll get back at him otherwise. Right, now ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you a story now. We've left that, and the reason I've done that, I can't introduce a skull unless you understand where the skull came from. Now here's the situation. We're looking for Adam and Eve, and we believe we found them. I can also tell you that the Australian government are not happy, and at the moment, and you'll see I think there's a slide up to finish there. There are now 2 people at the moment who've written me letters, and they've promised me 2 rewards. 2 years in jail and $500,000 fine, or 1 year in jail and $250,000 fine. And I'm not joking, because there are 2 people, and one of them actually has got, we've seen his CV, he does police tactical response group, he runs them. And they're both based, we know where they are, and for the last month and a half they've been compiling work, and I think the reason why two of our elders aren't here is they were threatened yesterday by them. That's why they haven't come. Okay, so this particular piece of news I want to tell you to begin with was found 2 years ago. We didn't discover it. A farmer found it on his land when they were digging out for construction, and he did the right thing. What should you do when you find something like that? Contact the authorities, because you can trust the government, they'll do the right thing. So they did, he did. He contacted the authorities, and they came out quickly, which is quite unusual for the authorities. By the way, I've got to tell you, they're very quick with me too. I'm getting phone calls and letters, one after the other. They're so quick. You think the government can't work quickly? When they want to, they can, believe me. So they came out. They had a look at these two skulls, took them away, and I can tell you originally, both of them were actually buried with their knees up against their chest, their hands were crossed like this, and they were both facing directly east. Very, very sacred ceremony, it's an ancient one. And then what happened was, they sent out two experts. I'm not an expert, they are. They took the skulls away, brought them back, and told the farmer, normal, nothing unusual. Nothing special about them at all. But you know the strange part of that story is the next day, two members of a local lands council came out to see the farmer, threatened him and told him under no conditions will this farm ever be opened again, and the place is off limits for everyone forever. And that was it. For 2 years, the place sat there. Now I don't know the story of what happened next, because I lived 1,500 k's away and I got this all through phone calls from someone else, so I was never involved in any of this. They rang me and said, do you want to come and have a look at it? And this is what they sent us. That. I looked at that and said, oh my gosh, Peru, elongated skull, massive eyes, I'm interested. Have a look at the size of the eyes here, ladies and gentlemen, and check your eyes out compared to that. They're not like yours, and they're like mine. I thought, that looks interesting. It's got an elongated skull. I'm thinking Peru. Brian Forster's making a pronouncement today about it, isn't he? Tomorrow. They've done DNA and that. We know the DNA is not human. Some of it isn't. That's coming out tomorrow. I thought, we got one of those in Australia. I said, yeah, I'll be in that. We'll go. 3 months it took. And then we said, look, I know who we're fighting. We need to film it. Because you know they're going to say, plan. We did this. We set it up. Like Piltdown Man. We made it up. So I said, mate, we're going to have a film. We've got a guy called David Bradbury. He's been nominated for 2 Academy Awards. Didn't get him, but quite well known around Australia. Done a lot of work. And he came along too. So we filmed the whole thing. And the first thing I'm going to tell you about photographs, that's a lie. It was nothing like that. That was not what we found. We found something completely different. What's happened is this guy stood above the photograph, and notice how everything's quite nice there. When we got it, it was all smashed to pieces. When they put it back, they didn't put it back like this. There were bones, there was leg bones and arm bones strewn everywhere. They did not put it back with respect. They threw it back in a hole. It was quite outrageous what we saw. So anyway, we got to this particular place, and I found out that is not what we were looking at. If you could please, that is what we're looking at. That is what we saw. Now, what you're going to see, the next photograph will tell you where the skull case is, and I'm going to tell you now, it goes back at nearly 180 degrees. It's behind the forehead. If you look face to this thing, what you look at, that looks like Lucy. 3.6 million years. It looks like Java Man, Peking Man, with a small cranium at the top there. It doesn't look anything like a modern human. But here's the problem. Lucy has a cranial capacity of 600 cc. What goes back there? I think the next picture shows it, does it, Evan? Ah, there's a better picture of what you've got me back there. It's still there, but it's in a different arrangement, a completely different arrangement. Now, what we found also was another skull. And can you see where that one finishes there and this one finishes there? They're not the same. And they were buried right next to one another. And I'm starting to say, this isn't right. I've got 2 different species of something that is buried next to one another within 1 metre on the same rise. Now I can tell you something about that rise. It's in the middle of a paddock in the middle of nowhere. I was quite disappointed when I saw it. Then I found out later that that was where the bank of the river was, the Murray River. 60,000 years ago, that would have been overlooking the water. That's when that burial took place. It's ancient. And more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you a little bit about the more nondescript skull, which is this one. What is wrong with this one is every person in this room shares something. It's called a sagittal keel. You've got one in the centre and you've got two on the side. When you're a baby, your skull isn't fused up. And you know, that's what makes hominids different. Because those three skulls that aren't fused up, it means that you can go from 400 to 500 to 800 to 900 to 1,000 and keep growing. Because these skulls can give and take over a period of time and continue on. This piece here, look at the back, look at the side, there's not a suture anywhere. Which means it is not a hominid. It can't be. It is not a hominid. The reason is very simple. Now, at the age of 30, some people actually fuse again a second time. And we went through this, and it made it very clear that you can see the fusing through X-ray. We held this skull in our hand, and I looked for a crack, desperately looked for a crack, and others did too. We had three people with gloves on all the time. There's no crack there. This is one complete skull cap. That scares the crap out of mainstream, because all hominids have that. Now, if it was an ape, there's a fusing on the top called the sagittal keel, which is why apes have always had the same brain size. It can't change. And by the way, that contradicts the fact that we're related. It's a major flaw in that lie. They have a keel, which means the gorilla will always have that size. It will never change. There's no keel on top, there's no crack, there's nothing. It doesn't make sense. Now, the second one, if we can go on again, please, Evan. I've no idea what you've got. Oh, there it is again. That's it, this piece here. There's no crack there. Now, what's next? All right, we'll go back to this guy. Now, that skull cap which runs at the back, I can tell you its measurements. It's 12 by 10, but it's a rectangle. And the best part is on the back of it, it's got a square knob. A square. It's a four-sided square, 1 centimetre by 1 centimetre. It sticks out on the back. Check yours, you haven't got a square. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about this character. I know there you're thinking it's got no brain. Trust me, it's got one. It's 12 by 10 at the back, and it's a rectangular piece again. It'll be about 1300 cc, same as you, no different. The other one, 1800 cc at least, way above us. We're not even close. It's got at least 400 cc more brain capacity than us. So these aren't regressions, they're variations. Now, what makes this one different? A couple. Number one, that one from there to there, 4.4, 4.4. Widest part of the face is 10 centimetres. When you take that top bit away there, basically the eyes make up 50% of the face. Ever seen anyone like that walking around the streets? You'd get on the other side of the street, you wouldn't stand next to them, man, you wouldn't be sure. You'd walk away. Never been like that. Now, there's an article coming out of Nexus in the next couple of days, and Duncan's made this a feature, and they got some other archaeologists to make comments, and they put them in. Because not from Australia, by the way, they came from other places, although one did. And one of the comments, a really good comment was made, and that's been put up, was the fact they talked about the eyes. And the eyes, they said, these eyes aren't made for daytime. They're not made for walking around here. You'd blind yourself right now if you went out with eyes like that. They're too big. They're more like an owl's eyes, but even that's too small. They're massive. And the comment was made that this being was made for a nocturnal environment. Which means what? Nature made something that can't come out in the day. Doesn't make sense. But the biggest problem with this character here is number one, the nose starts up here, which is an issue. But the biggest one is, it's humerus. There were two bones that were thrown out as they carefully threw everything back in. And I measured the femur and put it against my bone there. It's 42, and I'm 42. So I figured, okay, this guy's about 5'10". Makes sense? Bit different, but 5'10". Then I picked up the humerus, which is the bone from here to here. And very simply, it was down to here, but it hadn't finished. We measured 43, we're 30. Gibbons are 35. This was 43, but we didn't have the elbow joint. When you put the elbow joint on top, even if it was broken at the elbow joint, and I'm not convinced it was, if it was, that makes that one 45. It makes the next one about the same again, and then it makes the hand here at least 10, which means the arm is at least 1 metre long. Both of them are at least 1 metre long. Now, gibbons, who have long arms, 35. This is 45. That makes the gibbon's arm nothing compared to this thing. But here's the problem, the big problem. And this is why we're getting into so much trouble. The bone's 1 centimetre across. The thickest part of the bone is 1 centimetre. The gibbon's 2.5. You're about 2.5. So this bone is much longer than any other arm in the world. But it's so thin, what ligaments and muscles can you put on it? Nothing. And what function would it have? I said to someone, if you went up and hugged this being with a decent clasp around the arms, you'd break the damn thing. It would break in the wind. Why would nature make a mess where it can't go out at night and its arm's wrong, but its arm is wrong in this gravity? Listen, make it half the size. I can put more ligaments and muscles on it now because there's less pressure. If this being came from a place where the gravity was half what it is here, it does make sense. And of course that would explain if this being came from a place where it's eternally dark and the gravity is less, which certainly would be the case in a spaceship, it would make a lot of sense. The whole thing would make sense. But this thing doesn't make sense as it is now. This one's got 3 sutures. I know you can't see them, but trust me, they're there. It's at the back there because we took the picture to show you exactly what it looked like. But it's got 3 sutures, and here's the other. Oh, of course, one person told us this. The sutureless one. Oh, here it is here. There it is from the top. It's got a brain. You can see it, man. It's got a big brain. It's not an idiot. But the funny part is that one of the explanations for the fact that one doesn't have a suture, they said, well, what's happened is chemicals have leached into the sutures and fused them up. I said, oh, tell me, why is it there's another skull 1 metre away in exactly the same slope, in the same soil, in the same position, and the sutures are perfectly formed and I can see every crack on them? How can that happen? How are they next to one another? And why is it that that is 10 by 12 and the other one is 18 by 12? That's so different. And it gives you an idea of the size of the brain of the bigger one of the two. Now, all of that is amazing. But you know what? Do you think that mainstream will accept all of that? No. Won't go near it. I haven't got enough. There's only one thing mainstream will accept to prove this is correct. It's called a genome pattern. Now to do that, you know what I would need? I'd need teeth. Oh good, I'm glad you brought that one up. No, where was it? The one you just brought up. I forgot about that. Yeah, we'll get that in a sec. Actually, don't put it up now because I'm still doing the tooth bit.
I'm trying to get to the tooth.
Oh, I don't do the tooth, but it's just a tooth. Okay, that's going to come up anyway. Where was I?
You're up to the only genome
Proof that
scientists
you could have is with the tooth.
Oh, gotcha, that's right. Yeah, okay. I told you, that's why I made him. Okay, the only thing science will accept is the genome. And that would need a tooth, wouldn't it? Now that would mean taking a tooth off the burial site and getting it analysed. Gee, wouldn't you get a lot of trouble for that? But if you're going to do science, since they had their chance and they wouldn't do it, they failed. They deliberately hid this. It would mean that if you did that and you could find someone in the world, not in Australia, you wouldn't send it to Australia because I can tell you now the government will get a hold of it. If that was to happen, then you'd have a chance, wouldn't you? Well, we'll see what happens, eh? Maybe that's why I'm getting so many letters and so many people that like me a lot. But here's the point. If that did happen, it would only happen if the elders agreed to I wouldn't have never picked it up. The elders would have handed it to me because I was under the control of the elders at the time, not my country. I told the elders when I met them, I said, you are my bosses. You tell me what I can do and what I can't do. And if you tell me to do something, I do it. Actually, these two, if these things turned up, I had my back at the time and I was working when they may have turned up and were handed to me. And if they were sent overseas, I didn't know where the place was. Maybe somebody told me a place to send them to, I don't know. All those things could have happened, and if they did, wouldn't that be wonderful? Because they can't argue with that, can they? But let's get back to the story at hand. Let's go back to the big-eyed one. Was it TJ that pointed this out?
Yep.
Big problem here, ladies and gentlemen. See that depression there? There's nothing on the other side. One side's got a massive depression. I've looked at the points in above there, and it pushes in so far. Was there an impact point there, a percussion bulb? No, there wasn't. Was there a cut there where they cut in there? No, there wasn't. I looked at it, and it looked natural. But that means there's a depression on one side of the face and nothing on the other. Any humans you seen like that? In fact, ladies and gentlemen, we did a count, and we found 7 things about these 2 skulls that have never been found in the world before anywhere. 7. And you would think that's enough, but it's not. We've got a film up, which is on our website.
And YouTube.
And YouTube. And I am going to ask you now, I'm going to make this point now. I'm not putting it up today, but I am asking at some stage if you would look at it, and then I'm going to ask you to do something else. I'm going to ask you to tell other people to look at it too. Because what we're going to do is, after we do these 2 presentations, we're doing one at Geelong with some elders there, we're now then going to hit all the academics and send all the stuff to them. We do know a couple of academics that are open to look at this, because we do need mainstream to join in here. If we want the world to understand the truth, we have to break through that mob there, and we've got to fight through everywhere we can. So we're asking you guys and the people who come later to get people to look at that video. You'll see it, and you'll know, for example, you'll see the start where the farmer lifts up the lids. We didn't plan it. You'll see that where they lift it up and show it to us for the first time. And we did that to prove to people we didn't do it. So I want you to get other people, tell your friends to look at this. And then as we start, I want a groundswell to come from underneath, because you can't break into mainstream any other way. They just don't listen. So that's why we put that up. That question we can't answer. Now again, yeah, right. Okay, here's the other point. We didn't go further. How far did that other arm go? Where's the second arm? What do the hands look like? What other parts of that body? Because all we did was we took the 2 skulls out, put them next to one another, measured them and put them back. That's all we did. We can't everything's there. The whole of the skeletons of both these people are there. They're ready to be mentioned, and the Australian government refused to do the testing. Basically, I'm going to tell you something. What choice did the elders have when they took us there? If they wanted this fixed up, what were their options? They knew that whatever we put up without that test that the white fellas accept, which is a genome test, they would dismiss it. They had no choice. And I know right now as we speak, they're onto those 2 elders too, and they're hassling them. And they were going to come here, but now they're very stressed about the fact they've got the government on their back. Because Aboriginal people don't handle police and government that well. It's been a bad 230 years so far, guys. It's never come out well. We don't trust them. They've never done much for Aboriginal people, so they're just not comfortable right now. So we've got to get through that. So ladies and gentlemen, here's another interesting point. The skull thickness of this one is 8 millimetres. The skull thickness of the other one you saw is 13 millimetres. Yours is 2. You're 2. Who are these people? And I want you to think about something else. They're nothing like each other. But if you put them together, you've got the most robust skull in Australia for one of them, which is one of the 7 things we've got there. And you've got something completely different with bones that are sometimes robust and sometimes incredibly thin. You mix that up and you've got the full diversity of humanity. It's just Adam and Eve. All I can tell you is now, the government won't tell you, but we will. And if it turns out that we did manage to get, who knows, did manage to get a tooth out of this country, and that would be bloody hard, I can tell you, and it did get to another country, we will get those results. And Brian Forster's putting up his press conference. We'll put up one soon after. But that's if that happened. I can't say for sure because we're in enough trouble as it is. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Right, there's a comparison. Okay, the next one, please, mate. Right, there's the tooth. This one here. I want to tell you something about this tooth, and it's quite... Yeah, you can have 4 roots, you can have 2, and you can have 3. So that in itself is not unusual. What is unusual is look at the roots and look how they slope. They curve out. They don't go straight down like yours or mine. They curve. This one particularly goes right out this way, that goes out like that. Do you know what that means? Their jawbone is a lot different to yours. It has to be to take the room to put those roots in there. They don't go down straight. And I can tell you all the teeth are like that. Virtually what we're looking at, I don't believe one of them's a hominin. I'm not even convinced the other one is, but it's got 3 sutures. That's the only thing it's got going for it, is the 3 sutures. There's never been a hominid that slopes back at basically 180 degrees. Nothing like that ever. So everything about these two things is not right. I actually am quite happy. I'd be keen to go to court and to bring this out in the open. And then try and see if these guys could defend the indefensible. They failed in their duty and they did it deliberately to hide the truth. And what we're doing is we're going to bring the truth out. And so it basically starts here, and this is where we're going to start pushing it. And as you can see, that is a massive jawbone that runs across there. And a lot of those teeth are in situ. And by the way, we did not pull out a tooth that was in situ. I was told later, because I didn't see it anyway, if a tooth was given to me, I'm very hypothetical about that, it was on the ground, maybe. So we didn't pull it out, we wouldn't do that, because that should be kept as it is. But look how deep that jawbone runs. It's massive. It's not like ours, ladies and gentlemen, trust me. So what we found, no, what the government found, and what the farmer found, and I think he's going to get in a lot of trouble for this, by the way. Isn't that amazing? He's going to get in a lot of trouble for telling the truth. Welcome to Australia. Okay, next one please, Evan. Oh God, yeah. Oh, and there we are. I should explain alleged impact or harm to Aboriginal artefacts. There's pages of it. Notice how you've got point forms down there. I got more on the next page. I have to answer all of them. I've done it. And what I've actually done, I think, is I brought along about 5 or 6 copies of my response. So a couple of people want to take this further. I brought out our response, and my response was very simple. From the day I was rung, I knew what was going to happen here. So guess what I never did? I never spoke to any of the people organising the party. It was always done through a third party. When I got down there, I knew no one. I did that deliberately. Because they're going to say, oh, you should have got permission off me. And I'm going to turn around and say, hey, I didn't organise this. I know what you're talking about. I just come down to do a job. I assumed you guys woke up yourself and figured, no, we can't tell lies. We wouldn't have the government doing that. They must have woken up themselves. That's my assumption. So I've been very careful about this because I knew this was going to be very, very dangerous. Because they want this covered up. This is not what they want to hear. I reckon we're going to find in there Denisovan genes, we're going to find the mystery genes in there, and we're going to find genes in there we don't even know about. That's what we're going to find there. And I believe they've already done the analysis. And that's why it was put back. And that's why so much grief is taking place now. And that's why ASIA's involved in this, because this is a cover-up. And we've got the proof. So ladies and gentlemen, I got a letter from the government the other day. See, they can do things when they want to. Don't give up on them. All you've got to do is make sure you upset them first. Then they're very keen to talk with you. Okay, moving along, everyone. I'm pretty sure we are. Good. Okay. Now, I want to tell you a story about this. That's not the first time I got a letter like that. I got a letter before from them. I'm very popular with them. And I got it for this site. They sent me a letter, same one. And they do it the same way. They do the phone call first to pressure you, and then they send the letter after. And the first time they got rang up, I got a really nasty piece of work. He said he's the inspector, and they sent 6 people there for 2 days in checking on the site. And you know what they found we did wrong? Nothing. And that's what the phone call was about, the letter was about. I said, you guys ring up people often to tell them they've done nothing wrong from the government? Is that what you normally do? You ring people up to say, congratulations, you've done nothing wrong. No, we wanted to tell you in case you did do something wrong, what could have happened to you. That is not a letter, that's just a straight out threat. Same numbers, 2 years and $500,000 or 1 year and 250,000. So I knew the story back to front when I saw it. So I got that for this one. Why? This one's been covered up too. Now this is called the Standing Stone site. It's in Bundjalung territory. And it is, I believe, the most important site in the world. Not just Stonehenge. Now Stonehenge, oh yeah, that's pretty important because it's 5,000 years old. It tells us when the sun came up and where the moon came up. That's it. This tells you everything. Now, this story starts in 1939 with a stunning academic called Frederick Slater. He is a visionary. He's so far ahead of his time, it's not funny. And what actually took place, ladies and gentlemen, is the place was reported. Slater worked on it.